Welcome to BookBuzz Reviews and Summaries. Imagine waking up in the morning to the sound of your phone buzzing, your mind immediately flooded with notifications, emails, and social media updates. Before you even brush your teeth, you've already been inundated with information, comparisons, and distractions that pull you away from the present moment. By the time you leave your house, you're already exhausted, mentally overstimulated, and disconnected from the real world around you. In the midst of this digital chaos, have you ever asked yourself, is this really what life is supposed to be like? In his eye-opening book Offline, Free Your Mind from Smartphone and Social Media Stress, Imran Rashid dares us to confront this question head-on. He exposes the unsettling truth about the digital world that's been so deeply woven into our lives. It's not just reshaping how we connect, it's reshaping who we are, how we think, and how we feel. But here's the kicker. This isn't just another book about how to quit your phone for a week or disconnect from social media for a day. No, Imran Rashid takes us on a deeper journey. He doesn't just tell us to unplug. He gives us the tools to reclaim our time, focus, and mental well-being in a world designed to keep us perpetually plugged in. He offers us a radical, yet profoundly simple, solution to regain control over our lives, our minds, and our relationships. How often do you find yourself mindlessly scrolling through Instagram or Twitter, only to look up and realize that an hour has passed and you haven't achieved anything meaningful? Or maybe you've just spent 30 minutes reading through the latest news, only to feel more stressed, anxious, or even angry than before. It's like a never-ending cycle of digital noise that drains us without ever truly satisfying us. Yet, despite all of this, we continue to scroll, click, and scroll some more.
Why?
Because our smartphones have become extensions of our hands, our minds, and sometimes even our souls. We are addicted. We are distracted. We are constantly seeking validation, connection, and entertainment, but in doing so, we've lost something incredibly important: our ability to be present, to focus, and to just be. Imran Rashid dives deep into this dilemma, pulling apart the science of how smartphones and social media impact our brains, our emotional states, and ultimately, our happiness. He explains how these devices aren't just tools, they're addictive forces designed to hijack our attention and shape our behaviors in ways we barely even notice. The algorithms that control these platforms know more about us than we know about ourselves, and they use this knowledge to keep us coming back for more, to keep us hooked, and to keep us distracted. Rashid highlights a powerful truth. We are the product. Our attention, our time, and even our emotions are being sold to the highest bidder, and we've become so accustomed to this that it feels almost normal. But it's not normal. It's not healthy. And it's certainly not sustainable. What if there was a way out? What if you could take back control of your life and your mind without the pressure of needing to be constantly on? What if you could rediscover the joy of simply being with yourself and others without the constant tug of digital distractions? What if you could experience the world around you fully without the need to document it for everyone else's approval? That's what Offline offers, a roadmap for how to do just that. Rashid provides actionable insights and strategies to help you break free from the digital chains that bind you. He explores the concept of mindfulness in a digital age, urging us to become more aware of our behaviors, our habits, and our emotional responses when interacting with our devices. By being more conscious of how and why we engage with technology, we can start to make healthier, more intentional choices about how much time we spend online and how we allow it to impact our lives. He delves into the psychology behind our addiction to social media, explaining how these platforms exploit our innate desire for connection and validation. But he also presents the counterintuitive truth. The more we seek validation online, the more disconnected we become from the real, authentic connections that truly nourish our souls. He challenges the belief that social media is the key to staying connected, urging us to examine whether these virtual connections are actually helping or hindering our well-being. Rashid isn't just telling us to disconnect for the sake of disconnecting. He's encouraging us to make deliberate choices that will allow us to rediscover meaning in our offline lives. He emphasizes the importance of setting boundaries, cultivating focus, and prioritizing our real-world relationships over our virtual ones. Offline is not about demonizing technology. It's about using it in a way that supports, rather than diminishes, our well-being. In a world where we are constantly bombarded with notifications, alerts, and messages, it's easy to forget that we have the power to choose. We can choose when to check our phones, when to log off, and when to simply be present with ourselves and the people around us. Rashid reminds us that this power isn't taken away by the technology, it's something that we can reclaim. So, as you listen to this review of Offline, I want you to ask yourself, how often do I truly live in the moment? How much of my time and attention is being hijacked by devices that don't actually add value to my life? How can I start to make different choices, ones that will help me reconnect with myself and the world around me? It's time to take control. It's time to free your mind from the stress and distraction of constant connectivity. It's time to go offline. The answer isn't about abandoning technology, but about using it mindfully and intentionally, on your terms, not theirs. So, sit back, relax, and open your mind to the possibility of reclaiming your life in this digital age. This journey begins now. Chapter 1: The Digital Addiction, a Modern Epidemic. Picture this. You're sitting at your favorite cafe, enjoying a warm cup of coffee. You take a moment to relax, and then, almost automatically, you reach for your phone. You scroll through Instagram, check your Facebook notifications, or maybe flick through Twitter just to see what's happening in the world. 15 minutes go by, and you look up. Where did the time go? What happened to that peaceful moment you had set aside for yourself? This scene, according to Imran Rashid, is no longer the exception but the norm in modern society. He calls it the silent epidemic. Smartphones, which were once the symbol of technological advancement, have evolved into a constant companion, an invisible weight that hangs over every moment of our lives. In the first chapter of Offline, Rashid uncovers the startling reality. We're not just using our smartphones, we're addicted to them. It's a subtle, insidious addiction that sneaks into our routines and slowly takes control of our time, energy, and mental health. And the most unsettling part? Many of us don't even realize how far we've fallen. Chapter 2: The Illusion of Connection. Being constantly connected doesn't mean we're truly connected, Rashid tells us. It's an intriguing paradox that hits hard, especially for anyone who's ever scrolled through their social media feeds, only to feel more isolated and disconnected than before. He delves deep into the psychology behind social media, explaining that platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter are designed to keep us engaged for as long as possible. But at what cost? We're chasing likes, comments, and validation from people we may not even know. The sense of connection feels real, but it's ultimately superficial, a digital facade that leaves us feeling empty and disconnected in real life. Rashid highlights the way social media platforms are engineered to exploit our deepest desires for social approval. Every post, like, or notification releases a small dopamine hit, a fleeting rush of pleasure that becomes addictive. We find ourselves constantly seeking that next hit, checking our phones at every moment, no longer able to enjoy the present. This constant need for validation becomes a cycle, with our mental well-being slowly deteriorating in the background. Chapter 3: The Battle for Attention, How Technology Has Altered Our Minds. Now, imagine this. You're trying to focus on an important task, but you can't help but feel the magnetic pull of your phone. Just a quick glance, you think to yourself. But then you fall into the rabbit hole. You check your messages, browse through a few random articles, and before you know it, an hour has passed. Rashid explains that this isn't a personal failing, but a design flaw of modern technology. Companies know how to manipulate our attention. Smartphone apps and social media platforms are built to be addictive. They are optimized to grab our attention, using colors, sounds, and notifications that hijack our focus and create a constant need to check in. Every ping is a reminder that there is something new, something exciting, waiting for us. But as this battle for attention intensifies, our brains are rewired. We're no longer capable of focusing for long periods of time. This constant battle for our attention has altered the way we think. Multitasking, once seen as a skill, has become a trap, reducing our ability to do deep, focused work. Our minds, constantly hopping between tasks, can no longer stay immersed in a single, meaningful activity for more than a few minutes. This creates a sense of mental exhaustion. We feel drained, restless, and overwhelmed, even though we haven't done anything particularly exhausting. The brain's natural capacity for attention and focus has been eroded, leaving us unable to think critically, creatively, or deeply. Rashid explains that this phenomenon is no accident. It's by design. Social media companies profit from our inability to focus. The longer we stay hooked, the more ads they can show us, the more data they can collect, and the more money they make. Chapter 4: The Hidden Costs: How Smartphones and Social Media Affect Our Health and Well-Being. As Rashid shifts to the physical and emotional impacts of constant smartphone and social media use, he paints a disturbing picture. We think of smartphones as tools that help us stay in touch, stay organized, and stay entertained. But at what cost? The constant exposure to blue light from screens is affecting our sleep cycles. The stress of constant notifications is raising our anxiety levels. And the emotional toll of comparing our lives to the curated versions we see on social media is slowly but surely eroding our self-esteem. He digs into the science of addiction, showing how the constant use of smartphones and social media can cause measurable changes in the brain. The more time we spend on these platforms, the more our brains crave the instant gratification that comes with likes, shares, and comments. But this leads to a dangerous cycle of dependency, where our brains become conditioned to expect constant stimulation. But the costs aren't just physical, they're emotional too. Rashid brings up the concept of social comparison, the tendency to measure our lives against the seemingly perfect lives of others online. We see photos of friends on vacations, people enjoying successful careers, or influencers living seemingly flawless lives. As we scroll through, we subconsciously start comparing ourselves to these images. It's a comparison that rarely ends well, leading to feelings of inadequacy, frustration, and even jealousy. Chapter 5: Breaking Free: The Path to Regaining Control. By the end of Part 1, Rashid doesn't leave us hanging in despair. Instead, he introduces the idea of breaking free, taking control of our relationship with technology before it controls us. The first step, according to Rashid, is to recognize that we have a choice. We can choose how we engage with our smartphones and social media. This might sound simple, but it's a powerful shift in mindset. Rashid argues that the more we understand the psychology of addiction and the tactics that technology companies use to keep us hooked, the more we can make intentional, conscious decisions about how we use our devices. It's about creating boundaries, reclaiming our attention, and living more mindfully in a digital world. He sets the stage for what's to come, laying out a roadmap for freeing ourselves from the grip of smartphones and social media. But to get there, we'll have to make some difficult decisions, confront our habits, and face the discomfort that comes with letting go of the constant digital stimulation. The journey ahead won't be easy, but Rashid promises that the rewards are well worth it. Chapter 6: The Power of Mindful Disconnection. Imagine waking up on a Sunday morning, the sunlight filtering softly through your window. Instead of immediately reaching for your phone to check emails or scroll through social media, you decide to take a deep breath and enjoy the stillness of the morning. You take a walk, savor a cup of coffee, and experience the world around you without any digital interruptions. This moment of clarity, according to Imran Rashid, is what we all need to bring back into our lives, a sense of mindful disconnection. Rashid explains that being constantly connected isn't natural. It's a learned behavior that, over time, has become ingrained in our routines. The first step to reclaiming your life is to break the cycle of automatic, mindless checking of your phone. Mindful disconnection is not about completely abandoning technology or rejecting social media altogether. Rather, it's about using these tools intentionally instead of letting them control us. Rashid introduces the idea of being mindful of our digital habits, reflecting on how and when we engage with technology. When we become aware of the patterns that lead to our addiction, like reaching for the phone when we're bored or stressed, we can begin to interrupt those cycles and reclaim our time and attention. Chapter 7: The Psychological Impact: Why We Feel Anxious and Overwhelmed. One of the most compelling insights Rashid shares is how our constant exposure to social media and smartphones is rewiring our brains. The very act of checking our devices over and over again is creating a kind of digital hyperstimulation, making it harder for us to relax, concentrate, or focus on deeper tasks. Rashid explains that our brains are not designed to handle the constant stream of information that smartphones and social media provide. When we scroll through feeds, each new post or notification triggers a flood of dopamine, the brain's feel-good chemical. This leads to a cycle of short-term gratification and emotional highs, but over time, it leaves us feeling more anxious and overwhelmed. It's like a quick sugar rush that leaves us craving more, but with diminishing returns. The more time we spend on our devices, the harder it becomes to find peace. Social media platforms, with their endless stream of posts, comments, and images, are constantly feeding us new information, which makes it difficult to process and reflect. Our mental and emotional states become overloaded, and we start feeling anxious, restless, and burned out. This constant stress takes a toll on our ability to think clearly, make decisions, and engage in meaningful conversations. Rashid also points out the emotional cost of social comparison. While we may feel connected to others through likes and shares, we're simultaneously measuring our lives against curated, often idealized versions of reality. The result is feelings of inadequacy and low self-esteem as we believe our lives don't measure up to the highlight reels we see online. Chapter 8: The Art of Setting Boundaries: Creating Space for Real Connection. By now, it's clear that our smartphones are much more than just tools. They're powerful forces that shape how we think, feel, and act. But the good news is that we don't have to be passive victims of this digital overload. In this chapter, Rashid presents the idea of setting boundaries with technology to protect our mental well-being. The concept of boundaries may seem simple, but it's actually incredibly difficult to implement in a world where we're constantly bombarded with notifications and calls for attention. Rashid suggests that we start by creating digital boundaries, intentional limits on when, how, and why we use our smartphones. For example, he encourages us to set clear times during the day when we check our emails, social media, or messages. By creating windows of time for digital engagement, we can prevent ourselves from checking our phones mindlessly throughout the day. Rashid even suggests that we keep our phones out of sight when we're working on important tasks or spending quality time with others. This allows us to be more present in the moment, without the constant distraction of digital notifications. Another powerful technique Rashid discusses is the idea of technology-free zones, specific places where we don't bring our phones. This could be at the dinner table, in the bedroom, or during family time. By setting aside spaces for undistracted connection with ourselves or others, we can start to re-establish real relationships that are not mediated by screens. Chapter 9: Detoxing Your Digital Life: Practical Steps to Break Free. One of the most compelling and practical chapters in Offline is where Rashid provides actionable steps for detoxing our digital lives. He offers a step-by-step guide to help us break free from the pull of our smartphones and social media and to reclaim our attention and energy. Rashid suggests starting with a digital audit, a process of reviewing how much time we spend on our devices and which activities consume most of our attention. This can be an eye-opening experience, as many people are shocked to discover how much time they spend mindlessly scrolling or checking notifications. By identifying these habits, we can begin to change our relationship with technology. He then introduces the idea of a digital fast, a temporary break from social media and smartphones to reset our minds and bodies. Rashid recommends starting small, perhaps by taking a day or weekend off from all digital devices. During this time, he encourages us to engage in offline activities that nourish the mind and soul, such as reading a book, journaling, exercising, or simply spending time with loved ones. After completing a digital fast, Rashid suggests reintroducing technology in a more intentional and mindful way. He stresses the importance of choosing quality over quantity, engaging with the digital world only when it adds value to our lives and not out of habit or boredom. Chapter 10: Cultivating Digital Mindfulness, Living in the Present. As Rashid moves toward the final stages of Part 2, he emphasizes the importance of digital mindfulness, a practice that involves being fully present in the moment, free from distractions. This is the opposite of mindlessly scrolling through social media or checking notifications. Instead, it's about engaging with technology in a way that enhances our lives rather than detracts from them. He explains that digital mindfulness isn't just about limiting screen time, it's about being intentional with how we use technology. Whether it's checking emails, browsing social media, or playing a game, we should always ask ourselves, does this add value to my life, or is it just filling a void? Rashid also encourages us to embrace deep work, the ability to focus on tasks that require concentration without being interrupted by notifications or digital distractions. By carving out time for deep work, we can become more productive, creative, and satisfied in our personal and professional lives. It's a practice of reclaiming our attention and being deliberate about where we direct our focus. Chapter 11: Building Resilience in the Digital Age. The final chapter of Part 2 brings everything together by discussing the importance of building resilience in the face of digital stress. Rashid acknowledges that it's not easy to break free from our phones, especially when they've become so deeply embedded in our daily routines. But he insists that we can train our minds to resist the urge to check our phones and social media every few minutes. He offers strategies for building resilience, including practicing mindfulness meditation, setting daily goals to stay focused, and reminding ourselves of the value of offline connections. It's about developing the strength to stay grounded in the present moment, even when the digital world is constantly vying for our attention. Chapter 12: The Joy of Disconnection, Finding Happiness Beyond the Screen. Imagine for a moment that it's the weekend and you're sitting in your living room with a cup of tea. There's no constant pinging from your phone, no temptation to check social media, and no rush to reply to messages. You're simply present, enjoying the peace of the moment. In this final part of the book, Imran Rashid delves into the profound joy of disconnection. He emphasizes that true happiness and fulfillment often lie beyond the glowing screen of your smartphone. Our constant need to be connected, he suggests, is an illusion that keeps us chasing after things that don't necessarily add to our well-being. Rashid begins by exploring the idea that many of us have been conditioned to believe that our happiness depends on constant connection, whether it's keeping up with the news, checking social media, or staying in touch with friends and family. But what if, instead of finding joy through notifications and likes, we could find deep satisfaction by simply being present with ourselves and others in the real world? The joy of disconnection, Rashid argues, comes from mindfully choosing to live offline, to embrace moments of stillness and quiet without feeling compelled to reach for our phones every few minutes. This disconnection isn't about rejecting technology altogether, but about rebalancing our relationship with it so that it serves us, rather than dominating our lives. Rashid also shares the idea of creating digital detoxes, where we intentionally step away from our phones for short periods, such as during meals or family time. These moments of pause allow us to experience life more fully, without the mental clutter and distractions caused by constant digital engagement. Chapter 13: Building a New Social Contract, Fostering Real Relationships. In the age of digital connections, it's easy to forget what truly makes us human: our need for authentic, face-to-face relationships. Rashid uses this chapter to discuss how we can foster real relationships in a world increasingly driven by social media and online interaction. Rashid paints a picture of a typical day for many people. They wake up, check their phones, spend the day glued to screens, and end the night scrolling through Instagram or Facebook. While we may feel connected in a superficial sense, these online interactions often leave us feeling disconnected, lonely, and emotionally drained. In contrast, genuine human connections, those that are grounded in face-to-face interaction, shared experiences, and deep conversations, are what nourish our souls. The key, Rashid explains, is to create a new social contract where we prioritize in-person relationships over virtual ones. This doesn't mean we abandon technology completely, but we make a conscious effort to engage more meaningfully with the people in our lives, away from the distractions of screens. One of the most powerful tools Rashid offers in this chapter is the concept of phone-free zones in our homes and social spaces. For instance, he suggests designating certain areas of the house, such as the dining room or living room, as spaces for distraction-free interaction. This helps create an atmosphere where we can connect more deeply with the people around us, without the interruptions of smartphones or social media. Chapter 14. Redefining productivity, quality over quantity. In today's fast-paced world, we're often measured by how much we produce, how many tasks we complete, and how quickly we can respond to emails or messages. Rashid challenges this mindset, encouraging us to redefine productivity by focusing on quality rather than sheer output. Throughout this chapter, Rashid invites us to reflect on how our smartphones and constant digital engagement often make us feel overwhelmed and burned out. While we may be answering emails, attending virtual meetings, and posting on social media, we often sacrifice deep, focused work in favor of shallow, surface-level tasks. This, Rashid asserts, leads to a decline in the quality of our work and creativity as we spread ourselves too thin. To counter this, he advocates for a slow-down approach, focusing on fewer tasks, but doing them with greater attention and intention. He emphasizes the importance of having deep work periods, during which we completely immerse ourselves in a single task, free from digital distractions. Whether it's writing, painting, coding, or any other form of meaningful work, the goal is to create space for focus and cultivate an environment where we can do our best work. Rashid draws on examples of successful individuals who have learned to embrace this approach, prioritizing their personal well-being over the rush to do more. He also introduces the idea of creating a digital Sabbath, a day or weekend free from screens and social media to recharge and reflect on our true priorities. Offline is a powerful reminder that, in the age of constant connection, the most valuable thing we can do is disconnect, if only for a while. By doing so, we free ourselves from stress and overwhelm and allow room for the things that truly matter to flourish. Rashid's message is not just one of escape, but of liberation, offering readers the tools to design a life where technology serves them rather than dictates their every move. Thanks for listening. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new video updates. Happy learning!